We're going full circle moment at UFC 318 this weekend in New Orleans. Dustin Poirier will fight in his final bout of the octagon. Call it a career after his battle with Max Holloway. These two first met back in 2012 at UFC 143 when Bless made his promotional debut as an injury replacement against the Diamond. We'll get to the trilogy at the Smoothie King Center. His hometown favorite will look to go for the sweep. Other notables on this main card include Kevin Holland, who is looking to fight 7 times this calendar year, and former 2-division Bellator champ Pitbull seeking his first win in the UFC. But back to that main event. Poirier wants to end things, shining bright like a diamond, but Max has other plans.
We're both locked in, and we're both ready. You know, we know what's at stake. He got his last. This is his last dance, and you know, I'm here to play spoiler.
Let's bring in Brian Campbell, our combat sports analyst, to HQ to break this all down. So you heard from Holloway. We'll hear from Poirier in a second, BC. But I do have to ask you, when you first learned of this fight and what Poirier's intentions were, what comes to mind? What came to mind then? What comes to mind now?
Fun, all action, let's do it. Look, I want to live in a world where you don't necessarily need a full UFC championship and a pay-per-view main event. Sometimes you just need storylines, fun fighters, and in this case, 2 of the most beloved action fighters in this promotion's history. Yes, you will see the BMF title, the ceremonial belt, on the line, but this is more about Dustin Poirier, the great fighter who never quite did win the undisputed UFC championship, but has one of the best resumes for never doing so, going out on his own terms, picking a familiar opponent who can give him a great fight. And only there's the deal, though. Even though he's 2-0 against Max Holloway, he's fighting in some ways a rejuvenated Max Holloway, who is the slight betting favorite here. I think either way, you're going to get nothing but action, a great fight, and I think you're going to get a lot of goodwill, too, as the UFC sending off Poirier the right way.
Entering this fight, Dustin Poirier naturally asked about all the feels that will come into the octagon for his final fight. BC, sit tight. Let's hear from the Diamond.
I did everything I could to become undisputed champ. I put myself in position multiple times to get my hand raised and win that belt in the UFC, and just fell short, you know. Just got beat by really good guys, made mistakes, and it is what it is. That's life. That's my story. I wouldn't change anything. I'm proud of the work that I put in. I'm proud of the things I've accomplished and the life that I've made for me and my family. It is what it is.
BC, what did you make of Poirier's comments, and where does he rank for you in terms of best to never win a belt?
He's right up there with the great Dan Henderson, who, of course, was a 2-division simultaneous Pride champion, but never claimed UFC gold. Uriah Faber, another great fighter on that list, too. But I think Poirier ranks a lot higher on other lists from the standpoint of most beloved, most respected, and really one of the pound-for-pound most entertaining fighters from an all-action standpoint, blood and guts standpoint, every single time out. Look, if you ask me which resume would I want to have, Poirier up there with all of the other fellow champions, I might pick Poirier. He is so respected. He's never counted out in a fight. He's rejuvenated his career so many times when we thought it might be the end. Yes, ultimately, he's had multiple cracks at an undisputed crown. Never quite got over the hump, although he did win a UFC lightweight interim title over Max Holloway in the rematch in 2019. But Poirier always just keeps coming, gives you an honest effort. He's a philanthropist, a family man outside of the cage, and he's been one of the best representatives of American mixed martial arts that anyone could have hoped for. Look, we've criticized UFC in recent years, sending older legends like Anderson Silva or Jose Aldo into fights against contenders that really don't matter. I love that he's getting the full opportunity to have almost a retirement party, but it's one that's going to be contested in a cage for 5 rounds against one of his fellow all-time great favorite action fighters. That's a win-win for everybody, Tommy.
You know, it's interesting, right? Didn't we have a bit of a crossroads moment from a few years ago when he beat McGregor for the 2nd time at Fight Island? Maybe had a chance to beat Michael Chandler for the belt. Instead, he opts for the payday for the trilogy for McGregor. Would that have been an opportunity for him to get that belt, you think?
It would have been a great opportunity, but as he mentioned right there, he's already had really great opportunities, meeting Khabib Nurmagomedov at the highest point in his career and coming up short. Or how about his most recent title opportunity against pound-for-pound king Islam Makhachev, where Poirier just refused to quit, rallied late in that fight, had the kind of moments against the champ that no other fighters in that division do, and walked away a winner even though he didn't get his hand raised. I love his attitude on not stressing over the fact that he never did end up as the groom, right, with the ring on his finger there in the full championship. But being a bridesmaid with his resume, if I can continue the wedding cliches here, Tommy, it ain't that bad when you're as beloved and accomplished as him. Dustin Poirier is a true man of the UFC, and it's going to be an honor to see him go out, like we mentioned, on his own terms. You
are headed to Sin City, so they've been known for a time or two to have weddings in the Las Vegas area.
Shotgun weddings, yeah.
And it's also going to be tough, by the way. Anytime a fighter declares it's his last fight, sometimes it's not always the best ending. So if you're putting some money on Poirier, just be careful. All right. Let's get to Kevin Holland, BC, who wants to fight 7 times this calendar year. He wants to do Noche, which is what, like mid-September, then 2 more times before the calendar year ends. Is he crazy? Why does he want to fight so much, and why is he able to actually get to the octagon so often?
A few questions there. 1, is he crazy? Yes, self-proclaimed, by the way. 2, he says, look, I got an expensive lifestyle. I want to buy things. Where have we heard that before? How about UFC legend Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who was known for a similar style of, I don't care who's on the other end of the phone. When it rings, I pick it up and I accept the fight. I do think there's some opening for maybe criticism here. Holland fights so often, right? He just fought something like 42 days ago, and as you mentioned, this will be his 4th appearance, and he's going for 7 this year. The problem for Holland is his willingness to fight anyone at any time has led to a very uneven record. He often takes middleweight bouts that are ill-advised just because of the opportunity. Yet when he goes in there at welterweight, like we saw in June against Vicente Luque, and like we'll see on Saturday against Daniel Rodriguez, he's an elite, potentially a contending fighter. The problem is it's never really about strategy for him in matchmaking. It's never about waiting for the right fight in the right division. It's just about, I got bills to pay for, I like to have fun, call me up, I'm there for you. In some ways, you got to respect it, right? It's just tough when you see him in a welterweight fight and you see how good he can be as a finisher with those long arms. He's got a good ground game. He's game to fight at any time. You do wonder, if you just sharpen your focus a little bit, you might be able to climb those rankings.
I hit the nail on the head, BC. This press conference this week, he said, I'm not a championship fighter, I'm a prize fighter. He wants the money.
There it is.
He wants Colby eventually, too, by the way. All right, let's get to the UFC potentially going to the White House. We know the president been talking about that. Dana White, speaking of sound bites, BC, here's what Dana White had to say.
I mean, everybody wants to be on this card. I mean, you don't even have to know who's blowing up my phone. You can just see it all on the internet. But, the fight's a year away, so the landscape will change a lot over the next year.
DC, I thought Dana didn't want to get political, but he's hosting an event potentially at a place that's been known to be political.
Yeah, look, what's the best way to celebrate our country's 250th birthday next July 4th? How about cage fighting on the front lawn? Look, Tommy, I love mixed martial arts. I don't even know if this is the right decision, but will it happen? Could it happen? All the parties are saying yes, and Dana White is doubling and tripling down, saying this will be like the Sphere, the card they had last fall in Las Vegas in that big new futurized arena, only he said it'll be the Sphere on steroids. I don't know who's going to pay for that, right? Dana needed Turki al-Sheikh of Saudi Arabia to pay for it last time. But what is most interesting is the fact that he's saying this could be the biggest and best card of all time. You've heard 2 important key players, John Jones and Conor McGregor, who haven't been coming through that door recently anytime soon. Jones, in fact, retired and was forced to vacate the belt after avoiding interim champion Tom Aspinall for 2 years. Yet the call, the opportunity came in once Donald Trump, the president, gave that idea, put it out there in the public. Suddenly, John Jones is back out of retirement 2 years later. Suddenly, Conor McGregor's back in the drug testing pool. I think he may have to curb his lifestyle as Conor's been all over the place lately. But the opportunity for the biggest stars in UFC today and maybe historically to come out in this type of celebration, regardless of where you stand on your party lines, that's a big deal. I never thought the sport would be here. I never thought UFC would be this mainstream. It is very interesting to consider where it came from and where it is today.
Yeah, you dropped some big names. I heard the Notorious MMA been lifting weights these days, BC. All right, let's take a look at that.
Oh, come on, Tommy. This is a family show. How dare you?
Yeah, 318, by the way. That's on tap at NOLA. One thing, of course, Dan Ige and Patricio Pitbull lost to Yair Rodriguez, the former two-division Bellator champ, still looking for that first win with his new promotional company.